Hello, hello, and welcome to Coaching Corner with me, Tracy Forsyth. So today I want to talk about why I think everybody should see the big picture and not just their own painting. So what am I talking about? Well, if you are running a team or an organization, I think it's really important that everybody sees the big picture and not just their own painting. It really makes a big difference. So often, everyone is working really hard, often brilliantly, but they're focused on their bit, their project, their deadlines, their deliverables, their painting. And when that happens, what I think can happen and often does is that things start to break down. Teams drift into silos. Decisions get made in isolation, and I think, that team to team thing, often friction can build. So everybody is busy, but not necessarily aligned because nobody is kind of looking at the big picture. So I think it's really important, that the mindset shift that really changes things for the better is that people start to think systemically, if I can say that way, right? Systems thinkers become systems thinkers. They don't just think about their own piece. They think about how all the other pieces are thinking. And I think it is something that high performing, happy teams do well at. So what are the manifestations of that? It's like thinking about, how does the work I'm doing link in with other people? How does it impact others? What's happening upstream? What's happening downstream? What's happening side stream? What does the organization actually need right now, rather than me just staying in my lane? So not just what do I need to deliver, but really thinking big picture. Now, you might be thinking that's easier said than done because everybody's so busy just doing their thing, getting stuff done. So where does this magical time come to be able to think about others and the bigger picture? Well, that's why I think you kind of need things like team away days or team get-togethers, and that's how somebody like me can help. I do a lot of team get-togethers, workshops, realigning. But, at the very least, this is what I think you can do if you've got a company, a team, an organization, whatever it is number one, make the big picture visible. Does everybody understand the big picture? Strategy, it shouldn't just live in a deck for the people up here. It needs to be talked about often and brought to life. The second thing I think is really important, is to create cross-team conversations, not updates where everybody's only just thinking about their own thing, but dialogue, real dialogue about, I guess, interdependencies, like how do we work together? How do we need each other? How do we work together? So number 3 is to reward collective success, not just individual output. What is the impact of people's collective? Yeah. And number 4 is to get leaders modeling it. If senior leaders stay in their own lane, then everybody else will too, So, but I do really see that when people can see the whole canvas, the big picture, decisions get better, collaboration gets easier because you understand each other, you understand where you're coming from, and work, potentially moves faster or is just more effective. So this bit, the seeing the big picture seeing the big picture rather than just your own painting, is often kind of like the work behind the work. Yeah. And that's where I come in. So working with leadership teams to help people zoom out, reconnect to the bigger picture, remember they're part of something shared. You're all on a mission together. So if your team feels busy but slightly disconnected, then call me. That's usually where I come in, and I love to do it. So listen, I hope you've found something useful today. Think about the big picture, not just your own painting, and ask yourself, are people in your teams doing that? People you work with, etc., etc. All right, take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.